Hi, I'm Jacqueline Souza, Jacqueline King Souza.
I'm Sue King.
Sue King.
Back in 1919, my grandfather, previous to that, had a dairy farm, and this was all pasture land that we're looking at. And what he did was he met up with a couple of pilots that flew in a Jenny, and ended up befriending my grandfather, and also ended up befriending businessmen in Taunton, and they decided that, or got their heads together and decided this wouldn't be a bad idea to change the cow pasture into a runway. So that's how the airport started. We consider ourselves an aviation family. I even introduce myself sometimes to people, saying we're an aviation family, born, brought up here, and don't know much more about anything but aviation when we were growing up.
So this was your backyard.
This is our playing field.
This is where we played.
Yep.
Played a lot of ball, played make-believe, played a lot of stuff out there.
And you must have known all the pilots and all the airplanes.
All of them. They babysat for us when Dad was flying. Grandma lived in the house by the street. She was supposed to watch us, or was supposed to watch us, but lots of times none of them were here, and all the old timers that are gone now took care of us while everybody was flying.
Now your father was
Everett King.
Everett King.
Yep.
And I've heard that when he used to fly at night, when he would land here, you'd take the cars out and light up the runway with the headlights so that he could find the runway.
He'd do a long trip. When the textile industry left Taunton, he was doing charter flights to Pittsfield, North Carolina, and back and forth quite often, and he'd get home late. So he'd call Grandma ahead, right, and guess what time he'd get here, and we'd get ready for him.
And that would be putting smudge pots out, getting the cars that we had and lining them up at the ends of the runway, so that he'd have some idea of how to find the airport.
Porch lights in the houses, but he just wanted the porch lights, not lighting up the house. Couldn't see. So when he'd circle around and realize he was home.
Yeah.
So what year did the city take the farm to become the airport?
1959. The city, with the approval of my parents and my grandparent, my grandmother, and nothing better could be done than to support aviation. So the city decided to, with the King family, do the start of Taunton Municipal Airport. And that's when all the land for the airport was taken by eminent domain. And it wasn't just the King family. We got the biggest part, but all the neighboring abutters.
Square footage, most of the other people were just square footage out of their yards and stuff. But I remember in '59 I was 9, and we couldn't go in the house. The parents and Grandma were in a conference, and we could run in and out of that house 24 hours a day if we wanted to. But there was something drastic happening, and we weren't allowed in. We had to stay out here. We weren't allowed to go in and smooch off of Grandma's refrigerator or whatever we used to do. But that was the big decision. If they didn't do this, the talk was to put a municipal airport somewhere else, which would have killed their gravel strip and their business, they figured, because everybody would go for the modern new runway.
When the city took the land from you and the abutters, this little section that we're on here was going to remain in the King family.
That's correct.
And you would always have access to the airport.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. There was an agreement, and we have it, but it isn't signed. So I don't know where the signed agreement is. It's disappeared. It's just gone.
In 2019, an 8-foot fence was put up to cut off the King property from the airport.
So how did that come to pass? How did this fence come to be?
They started out by telling me it was for deer, stopping the deer. Then they told us that the FAA required it as a through the fence operation. I've been fighting them since that started. I've talked to the FAA and of course the airport commissioners, the bad ones.
The airport commissioners have told us one thing and the FAA has told us something else. So we're really kind of...
The FAA said that there's no set rules for a through the fence agreement. The government hasn't got one. I have a stack about an inch thick of every through the fence agreement in the United States pretty much. And they're all different. None of them are the same. They also told me it's up to the commission, airport commission, to decide what they should do.
Government and the FAA.
Getting all their money.
You know, the municipal airport getting the federal money. That the rules have changed. And the rules now are that we are out.
But there were options to where you could still use these hangars and get access through the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get to sit down with the commission prior to the vote, face to face with the full commission, and discuss this?
Not prior to any vote. I don't know when even a vote came in.
There was none.
The ones we're dealing with the most is Airport Solutions. They've called 2 meetings. Airport Solutions has called 2 meetings that ended up over at the airport with 2 or 3 airport commissioners, my sister and I, the airport manager, and when there wasn't a manager, and cousin Linda from across the street. And they just showed us what was going to happen. The first option was they were locking us out totally. I have all the stuff upstairs if you want to see it. The second one was a gate
With a lock.
with a lock, and they'd give us the key to the lock when we paid. And they put the gate in a ditch.
Sue's got a picture of the gate
I got
full
the
of
gate
water.
so full of water you'd have to swim to get over to it. It's so bad.
Okay.
So, and we can't do it. We can't
afford
it.
what they're asking.
Yeah. About the 100th anniversary of the airport, how do you feel about that celebration?
We're not very happy. We're feeling a little slighted, number one, and we're feeling as if, you know, there was no communication with us. We found out through a airport commission meeting that there was going to be one. It was the first airport commission meeting I went to. So I just don't trust the powers that be, and I don't trust what is happening. I've spoken to the chairman of the airport commission and told him that I didn't want a 100th anniversary. 40 years of that does not belong to them. And also that whatever this commemorative coin is going to be, it better have not one picture of anything over here.
And we did a letter to the editor last week, telling the city what we feel. The city doesn't seem to care. The mayor doesn't care.
No, the mayor'd like to see the airport go, and I think that's why
we were almost thinking that they'd be glad to get rid of it. The city would be.
So I envision probably we're looking out at a golf course, or because we have a couple of contractors on the commission, maybe they're looking at housing. Who knows? A development. Dollar signs. So, again, I'm very discouraged.
We're real sad.
Do you have anything else you want to add? That kind of says
there are a few good airport commissioners that have been trying to help us. It's just that the head ones, the chair, and the cronies and the old cronies that were there before are not very nice.